I will skip short introduction, which I'm giving about myself because I shown it last time. So let's just skip it. And let's go with a privacy sandbox explanation. So starting from what is this privacy sandbox? So privacy sandbox, this is a set of projects which Google makes inside the Chrome browser. And these projects, they are on the different stages. Some of them been finished, closed, some of them just started. And all these projects, they are changing user agent behavior. And these projects, how it's stated by Google, they aimed on improving of users' privacy. So just one of examples, one of the projects which I believe everyone heard about. So this is restrictions which Chrome browser put on the third-party cookies. So this is like one of the famous projects which basically impacted everyone, like industry and users and any person who use the Chrome browser. So some of these projects, they eventually becoming V3C standards, they becoming RFC standards, and they are implemented by all browsers, so not only Chrome. And so why basically everyone should be interested what happens with these projects, particularly because according to latest statistics, like 61% of browser market share taken by Chrome, and it basically means that Chrome browser, as soon as it changes something, it means it's changes implemented for huge audience. So basically, if you are in charge of any big web service, it means 60% of your users will connect somehow differently, and it can impact your project. So you should be involved. And if you're user, again, 61%, so there is a high chance that you basically have a Chrome browser, or you have Android smartphone, which means you're also using some kind of Chrome browser. So you should be interested in this too. And again, obviously, projects about privacy, so everyone concerned about privacy. So what is controversial about these projects? So basically, projects implemented by Google, and accordingly to latest papers that were provided to SEC in the United States, almost like all profits that Google generates, they're coming from advertisement. So basically, how advertisement works, like it's on the fingers explanation. Yeah? So there is advertisement service which are paid by someone who want to incentivize you to buy some service or goods. And after incent, for example, they're asking you to buy elephant, you're becoming incentivized, so you want to buy elephant, you're going buying elephant, and a company who bought advertisement are happy because they sold product, and Google happy because someone bought ads from Google. So what is the catch here? So if you want to sell advertisement better, you should violate somehow user privacy. So this is a catch, because basically, if you want to sell ads better, you should target advertisements. You should know more about users. So you should basically have some personal information. Like you shouldn't show female advertisement to male, and you shouldn't do vice versa. And for example, you shouldn't advertise maybe fast food to athletes and vice versa, et cetera, et cetera. So it means that company who so successfully as Google sells ads to everyone, they somehow not really interested to restrict privacy. So that's why we kind of should look carefully at these projects, because it's not always about privacy. Sometimes it's something different. So let's discuss some of them, and you will see the issues. So there are categories of projects. First category is aimed on the fighting with fraud in internet. And project introduced here is a trust tokens. So idea is quite simple. So in case if this project will be implemented, there will be several additional parties introduced on the internet. So one of these parties will allow to confirm that user is a real human. And as soon as it confirmed that user is real human, so user browser can receive like several tokens, cryptographical tokens, and these tokens later can be claimed by other websites who want to be sure that user is human. So basically, you confirmed that you're human once, you got some tokens, and after that, you can use these tokens on our website to confirm to our website that you are human too. From user perspective, it's not bad because basically it's like you solved CAPTCHA once, for example, you confirm that you're human, you have these trust tokens. Then other websites will not ask you to enter CAPTCHA, they will just redeem these tokens, redeem. So for users, maybe it's convenient, but if we will check a little bit deeper in the specifications, you will see interesting thing. So these tokens can be issued by limited amount of issuers. So basically, what's the catch here? If there are like a lot of issuers, and in that case, this API can be basically used to track person, because combination of issuers and trusted tokens can sell, can say where this user have been and which trusted tokens he received, and this is kind of like additional possibility for fingerprinting. So from security reasons, we must decrease the amount of issuers of tokens. So in that case, it's difficult to track which issuers provide the tokens for users. And basically, if you have, for example, 4 issuers, how we're proposing in documentation right now, 4 issuers for trusted tokens only, in that case, it's impossible to use that feature for fingerprinting, because basically you have only 4 bits of additional information, like user got token from issuer 1, from issuer 2, issuer 3, issuer 4, 4 bits. So for fingerprinting, quite useless. But other side of this, somehow we have only 4 trusted issuers in internet. And in the initial proposal, it was Cloudflare and basically Google. And they also have an agreement with Fastly, so another CDN provider. And this all around looks a little bit sketchy for now, because basically Fastly and Cloudflare, they're also using their DNS services, for example, to track users and understand which sites you're visiting. So this kind of bit controversial schema. So and this is how it works. I already explained it, but as I said, so there is basically a tester, for example, reCAPTCHA, who will attest that you're a real human. And after that, you can get tokens from token issuer. And as for now, I can see the problem is mostly token issuers. Amount is very limited. It's kind of monopolization of market, and it creates also kind of single point of failure, because it's just 4 of them. And what will happen with other systems who providing, for example, fraud prevention, it's also questionable. So, but let's see what will happen. Well, next category is, this is very interesting. So this is basically technologies aimed to make advertisement more safe for customers. Where I can say as a customer, I'm not very interested in advertisement. I mean, many of you too. So obviously these technologies, they are not for end users, I believe, because I mean, many of us can agree that we will be more happy if banners will just disappear from internet, yeah? So, but from industry perspective, and if you selling ads, so it could be more maybe beneficial to you to check what happens here. So first one was actually closed. First one called Federated Learning of Cohorts. So idea basically was like this. So when you're visiting a website, you have some browser history. And for example, Google, if you enabled sync in the browser, Google already has all your browser history. But other companies, of course, they don't. So other companies, what they like to do to collect your browsing history, they like to use some tracking pixels, they like to use some tracking modules in JavaScript. And your browsing history obviously important because, again, allows to get your profile, so allows to target advertisement better. What we try to do, we try to implement this stuff on a browser. So basically, you're visiting some websites, and browser collects your browsing history, and based on your browsing history, browser attributes you to different cohorts. So basically, for example, if you're visiting sport websites, it says, okay, this guy is like has interest in sport. And when, for example, you're visiting education websites, particularly, for example, mathematics, and it adds a cohort like a mathematician, something like that. So basically, there are several cohorts, and they're giving some understanding about user interests. So why it was closed, why it was basically like this PLC was closed, because anyone who can request this API inside browser could get these cohorts. And this particular API actually was very, very easy to use for fingerprinting. Because yes, people who are selling ads can get your profile, but actually anyone can call this API and get all cohorts that you're belonging to. And these cohorts, this is amazing fingerprint. And in many cases, for example, it can be very sensitive personal data. Like imagine a person who, I don't know, constantly searching websites, medical websites related to some particular disease. So this is basically exposing some, very sensitive information potentially. So that's why we closed it, but not completely, because people still want to sell ads. And we added another one, Topics API. So Topics API works a little bit different. It's trying to classify websites which you're using with a machine learning model. So basically, any of you can check how it works. So if you have a Chrome, there's a link, Chrome Topics Internals. So you can make it by yourself, but if you will open tab, you will see like on the right side of the slide, you can see this screenshot of the tab. And personally, for me, interesting was the model file path. So basically, you can download the TensorFlow Lite model, which we're using to classify websites. And in documentation of Google, it's explained how to test that model. But basic classification you can make literally in that tab. So you can just enter some site names, and you can try to classify them. So it's, I can say, more private, because there are only 350 topics which created by humans. So obviously we excluded everything sensitive from here. And my concern is how it actually helps other, side of equation, people who are selling ads. I personally don't think it helps too much. So again, this test based on the domain names, they are not perfect. As you can see, for example, I tried like 4 different websites, and Google was classified as a topic 219 search engines. Army Meal was classified like government and law. But after that, I tested Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Russian Security Council, and they've been classified as music and audio websites. So, I mean, machine learning is not perfect, obviously, so there are false attributions. And like from advertisement perspective, I don't believe this is like really good thing, because I mean, I believe there are much more like mistakes can happen during classification. I just found obvious one, and there's actually I specifically tried government website. I was curious, like, can we find the people who visiting this website somehow? Like maybe there is some mistake in categorization, but which actually can point on user who using these government websites. And I was surprised to find that both Chinese government and Russian government was classified as a music website. So it's kind of interesting why it's like this. Anyways, thing is more, I can say, focused on privacy, but less useful for advertisers. So I don't know how it will work out in the future. Another my concern here that right now, like if you have this, your browser basically running a large machine learning model. It's a BERT is not small, it's a big model. And I really want to run it on your laptop. Like why you should do this? It's not helping you as a user at all. So you just don't need it basically to surf internet. So just running this stuff on behalf of the advertising companies and Google. So third one, well, this is most controversial. So I put as a first thing to slide how to opt out. So you should opt out if it's enabled by chance. So this thing called FLEDGE API. And this is very sketchy thing because this thing allows to run advertisement auctions inside your browser. So for me, it sounds a little bit crazy because right now, advertisement auctions were actually happening somewhere on advertisement servers, and advertising companies should basically pay for these servers, and advertising companies should decide which advertisement show to one particular user. And you know, if advertising company is like very powerful, has a lot of strong engineers like a Google, they can of course build a very enhanced profile of user. They can advertise very nicely, and maybe it's not like nice for users because it's breaking privacy, but from our side, with like big companies, we also like to protect user profiles, so we aim to protect them, so maybe it's safer, I don't know, it's a discussable topic here, but this API allows to run advertisement auctions inside your browser. So, and well, I even don't know what to say about it. So basically, there are many bad things here. One of the things that to run these auctions, they literally allow to download some code from third-party website and run inside your browsers. So some web assemblies can be uploaded to your browser by request, and after that they can be executed in the browser context. Now, I was really scared by this because there are a lot of exploits which can be run as like this, basically, as a WebAssembly. And this API literally allows to do it. It's just one of the functions here. Then some data during the auction can be also requested from trusted server. I mean, trusted by whom? Trusted by user? No, we cannot trust anyone in here. Like, we can trust advertiser, we cannot trust website which shows ads. Well, again, as a user, I probably will just opt out. As a person who sells ads, maybe it's not bad. You can offload something to user browser, but I don't know. It's from human perspective, not nice. So conversion reports. This is the next thing that we developed. So basically, what this thing allows to do, it allows to send conversion reports to advertisers and calculate these conversions inside the browser. So conversion is basically the thing which is very important for ad market, literally relation how many times you show banner to how many people clicked on the banner. So this is an important number. You can understand how good is your advertisement, how well it's targeted. So if a lot of people clicking, probably ad is good, targeted well, If no one clicking, something goes wrong. Maybe website where you placed ad is not good. So important information. And of course, to collect this information, ad web providers, they used third-party cookies a lot. And again, so we're breaking third-party cookies in browsers right now from security reasons. So conversion reports will become like broken. And I believe this conversion reports API completely inspired by advertisers. So in case of enabling this feature, so advertiser can embed special attribute called attribution SRC into banners, and this information can be collected, and this information can be sent to specific endpoint. Again, as user, I'm honestly not very interested into this. So next, there is several projects, several APIs aimed on the site's isolation. They're actually relatively small and very simple, and they're not so controversial. So, but let's talk about them too, because they actually can be interesting for us as engineers who developing services. First-party sets. First one, and it's actually very, very simple. So, you know, first party, third party. Yeah. So first party, it's basically websites which has a same origin. And biggest problem for us right now as engineers is, for example, single sign-on. Why? Because if we're doing single sign-on, in the past, it was very nice to use the third-party cookies. For example, third-party authentication, authorization cookies. You can place them in the browser, and when user passing across websites, you can understand, okay, he's logged in. Very nice. But as soon as third-party cookies blocked, problems. So you cannot do SSO simple way. And when we have a lot of very complicated schemas like OpenID, Connect, etc., but this thing basically allows you to put the JSON file on the well-known endpoint first-party set and basically say which domains should be considered as a first party. So it means basically if in the first party there are many restrictions which is relating with websites from each other will be removed, and like SSO will work nicely, and you can do like cookies and etc. and other stuff. So very simple thing. Unfortunately, I believe this will be just POC. I'll tell you later why. So second thing called chips, cookies having independent partition state. So right now in the browsers, many storages, for example, already partitioned. So what happens in case of partitioning, there is a storage for one region, there is a storage to another region, and you cannot get access to from one region to storage of another region. So it's impossible, and for many situations it works this way. And cookies is just one additional storage basically in the browser. What happens with these partitioned cookies? So for example, you have a browser, you're opening some page. Inside the page you have an iframe from our site, and this other site will set a cookie. So right now, for example, if you will open the same iframe from other site in a different website, these third-party cookies will be sent. Yes, it will be in context of a different website, but iframe is the same. And this behavior should be restricted in the future. So what we proposed with chips cookie. So with chips cookie, what happens if cookie was set in the context of one region, for example, my site, it will not be sent anywhere if the same iframe from same domain opened from our site. So basically, for same iframe in a different context, we will have different cookies. Even if we have the same name, but we will have different values. So again, I'm not really concerned about this, but if it's somehow impacting your website, you probably should be aware about it, because Safari tried to enable the same thing. They tried to use some heuristics, some rules to basically to decide like send or not send cookie. Is it the same origin or this is different context with different origin? So there were a lot of confusion. Some websites was been broken by it, so Safari rolled it back, this feature. But Chrome still trying to do it. So yeah, there's one project called shared storage. So I just skipped it because this is most simplest one. So shared storage, you know, there is a session storage, there is local storage. So you can imagine what doing shared storage. So as I said, basically right now browsers trying to partition everything and separate storages between websites, but shared storage, which is storage which intentionally made shared, so basically to allow you to share information. So very simple thing. Again, I'm not sure that this thing is good. We're going to implement it, but from my perspective, shared storage will allow to make mistakes. So if, as soon as we have shared storage, someone can, for example, by mistake put credentials or tokens to shared storage instead of local one, and they can become accessible. So it's just one additional place where developers can make mistakes. I don't know, is it good or not? So last project is probably most complicated one from implementation perspective, as I can see. It's called Federated Credentials Management, but from security perspective, also not so many concerns here. So what this project allows to do, it basically allows to websites to request authentication from third party. It's kind of similar to social authentication, OpenID Connect things, but this proposal not relies too much on the cookies, and basically if third-party cookies disabled, this thing will continue to work. Well, you can check API documentation, but again, works almost like social auth. So basically, a website can request authentication from some specified third party, and in that case, browser will handle all process by itself. So it basically will request third party. It will show you authentication form. You can get tokens, and again, everything happens inside browser, so it can be maybe even safer than current OpenID Connect schemas, when we often using some like complicated JavaScript widgets to handle all of this like authentication flows, and also possible to make mistakes. But so my concern here is that again, so this is completely different standard. So this is not OpenID Connect. If you'll check specifications, it's very different. It's not OAuth, obviously not SAML. So if you already implemented something, and if you, for example, in charge of identity providers, this is like surprise. This is completely new thing, which you probably should develop. But again, it's not going as a standard right now, so it's just like be aware about it. Maybe it will become standard. And my second concern here is that we're talking about Google Chrome, but there is also Safari browser, and Apple not always implementing the proposals made by Google. So in that case, if, for example, Google will say, okay, we like this federated credentials management stuff, so let's release it, let's use it, and Safari will say no, and Mozilla, for example, well, Mozilla probably will say yes, knowing that we're sponsored by Google. But again, we can have some problem with compatibility. Like if you are developing a large website, and specifically if you're developing identity providers, better to track this project, because again, or also you can participate in working group if you have concerns. You always can send some concerns to guys who are doing this. So this is just a list of things that already been done. I told you about third-party cookies. Maybe you know about same site attribute for cookies. And many of these things, they actually impacted services a lot. So as a conclusion, I want to say that these projects, they are impacting user agents a lot. So they're changing a lot of basic functions implemented in browsers. So we're changing request headers, we're changing behavior of storages, we're changing behavior of authentication flows. So if you're developing services, better to track them. So you should, I'm like thinking you must to check what happens here, and you should track what we're doing. So from user perspective, there are a lot of projects which are controversial. So basically, we don't need some of them as users. So I can understand advertisement companies, they need it. But again, as users, I'm really not interested to run, for example, some code, machine learning code, some advertisement bits code, something, in my browser, because again, this is advertisement company stuff, so why I even should pay for electricity to run this code in my browser? I'm just like completely, not only not interested, but kind of against of this. My third concern is, if you'll check most of these things, this is some JavaScript APIs. So attack surface in browser significantly increasing. Like there are a lot of additional functions, some of them uploading files, downloading files. They have a lot of massive JSON inputs, outputs. So it's like huge additional space to develop exploits, to search for vulnerabilities. And parts which, for example, using machine learning, also my concern is that how basically useful they are. So yeah, maybe from privacy perspective works nice, but from advertiser perspective, why 350 categories? It's not too much. So maybe it's just completely useless. So yeah, and also all these things were generating tons of additional traffic, additional HTTP requests to some trusted websites, trusted by someone, and also requests to third parties, which you probably will not see, because this all happens in background, and it's also concerning a lot. So yeah, this is a conclusion. So if you have questions, you can ask questions. Thanks for your attention.
Can I?
Yes.
Sorry, I lost somewhere. First of all, my name is Slava from the Smartness. Oh, sorry.
Where's the microphone? Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, now we are starting our questions. And yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. My name is Slava from the Smart News Engineering. So I lost a little bit somewhere in the middle. Which one are still proposals? Which one is like...
They actually all proposals. So except things that are shown in the last, these things have been implemented. All others are proposals on the different stage. For example, speaking about last one, federated authentication, it's like early proposal, so there is like some API specifications, but they not decided about UI part for now. So they, for example, they would like to show some user IDP-defined authentication buttons, like login with Google, for example. But design for these buttons somehow should come from Google, and they haven't decided how to work yet. So it's like early phase. Some of them, for example, topics API. Like more defined, more developed, and you actually, if you look at the list, you will see some of these features available as a feature flags in browser. Some features you can enable only if you're using command line as a flags in command line. So yeah, we're just on a different stage, but it's only proposals.
Okay.
But again, some of them, as you can see, they actually become like production features. And some of these features, they have broken a lot. So better to track.
Well, thank you. So, well, I generally think that all of that sounds a little bit dystopian, especially the first part. My specific question is about the trusted API tokens. The one that the SSL-like tokens that have to be issued by someone. Is it a kind of early state proposal, or it's something that we're likely to end up having and dealing with?
Well, who pushing right now a lot of this topic? Basically, it's Google. It's again Cloudflare, Fastly. So, well, from one side it sounds like a thing which will improve privacy, but from other side it looks again like a monopoly on the market for me. So I kind of don't like it too much. We're actually discussing right now how to make like more issuers available for user, like not for how it's right now. We're saying, oh, we shouldn't allow like user to be tracked using this API, so only for issuers. I kind of cannot say I'm happy that everything and all connections will go to Cloudflare, Google Fastly, and someone else. We don't know who it is. I'm not happy about it, to be honest, like really, because these companies, they declaring privacy, but most of things that we're doing, we're just growing business. So that's why I started from explanation why we should be concerned, because like Google selling ads, to sell ads you should have user profile. So this, fighting with privacy for privacy can actually be fighting with competitors, for example. Like instead of like Google already has a lot of market share. Yeah, everyone using Google somehow. So what they can do else? For example, they can break our advertising companies' business. Yeah, that also will help. So kind of better to check.
Thank you. So I have a few more questions regarding the topic, but I don't know. I want to give the microphone to others to ask other questions, but I actually still want to ask a few questions regarding this specifically trusted stuff. Okay.
Yeah. So if someone, if anyone else has a question, we can switch to them for now, and you can maybe ask them after.
Okay.
The question. So any other questions?
So, yeah, you can ask.
So, well, this trusted token. So, let's say right now, like I think the Firefox is very famous with their like extension for the Facebook. So specifically, they will block like Facebook cookies, for example. So it feels like with this trusted token, essentially, it will prevent you from doing that, because if it's the trusted token is issued by something, it's like SSL certificate. So if you would say block it, I would assume every website will be able to tell you, no, I don't know who you are, etc. But so you literally cannot switch it off. But in that case, Facebook will benefit from having those tokens. You basically have no protections from them, let's say. Is it sounds okay? Correct?
Yeah, if for example, Facebook will be like one of the parties, so basically whom they want to let to attest user. So it can be things like reCAPTCHA. Yeah? You passed reCAPTCHA, so they believe maybe you are a real human. But another variant who can attest that you are a real human, this is a large identity providers. Like for example, Google by itself or Facebook. They already collected a lot of data about you. So if you logged into Facebook, presumably you are human. So that's what they want to do. And it can break something, if you like, for example, if your website wants to get trusted token like from some specific issuer, but this issuer is not available, yeah, it can break something, I believe. But again, my biggest concern here, who is these issuers, how they will be chosen, who can become issuer, and there are also, you can check documentations, there are links, of course, there are also security considerations, like there can be some attacks on these tokens, etc., etc. But my concern mostly issuers. Who is this? Who will basically prove that users are real? Who is magic companies? And how you can become issuer? Like, can you become issuer or not, for example? Because in one of early proposals, we said like to generate tokens, you should have many servers, because if like small amount of servers, you're generating tokens, so these servers can actually track users. So a company which has like more than 100 servers only can become issuer. So it's also like, it's written, you know, in the documentation very, very deeply, but if you'll see this, you will have some concerns like, okay, so let's say I want to become issuer, wow, so I should have 100 servers at least. It's kind of not small number, you know. It's kind of already big business. So it's like all small companies cut it out. So that's why, yeah, if you want to use this API, check what happens here, because again.
And it's not something, if they will take it, it's not something you can just strip out of your browser, because everyone will rely on it, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true also. And again, imagine if Safari, for example, will not use it. So it's can become
Thank you very much.
very bad for developers.
Okay, any other questions? Anyone?
Yeah, I put a lot of links into my slides, so if you want to check, there are links to concerns from different companies about it, and there are also links on documentation how to opt out. I almost like put to every slide how to opt out from this. And of course, links to documentation how it works. But because a lot of discussions happens in the mailing list, so you probably will not see everything what's in the background. Like this, for example, about 100 servers, that was very nice discovery for me. How it can basically limit many companies to do fraud prevention business. Okay, so let me stop sharing.
Yeah, as an addition, you can also find most of the materials and recordings in our on our YouTube channel or LinkedIn group. And so on LinkedIn, you can also contact Yuri and other speakers.
And of course, we will share everything. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yuri.